Eternal provisions. Why must we wake up before we die? The secret to not leaving empty-handed. Author Vahid Zekavati. Copyright VMZ Production. Introduction. Yes, right now, as you are reading these words, you must understand that the secret to not leaving empty-handed is not a religious promise, but a psychological reality. For years, you felt that something is fundamentally wrong, like a hidden alarm clock warning, "Time is running out." Do you also feel trapped in a foolish race with rules you don't know? Why, after all this effort, is your heart not at peace at night? Is that inner critic's voice truly trying to help you, or is it just blocking your awakening? How can one find a real, lasting peace in this chaotic market? Who lied to us that the world is serious when it's just a training ground for gathering eternal provisions? This book is about to uncover this secret, not with logic, but with inner jolts that hit your subconscious directly. Are you ready to see where the real hell is? Chapter 1. Why do I feel my life lacks purpose? Have you felt that suffocating sense too? Waking up in the morning to find everything in place, job, family, apparent success, yet a vast void howls in your chest? This is the common pain of many of us. We chased goals that were not ours, objectives injected by society, our parents, or social media. We learned that doing is more important than being, and now we're left with a transcript full of A's but a hungry, wandering soul. This is the beginning of the awakening we seek, a painful jolt that strips away the lies so you can see yourself. This feeling of emptiness is the first slap of reality, the first time your soul screams, "I didn't ask for this life." Accept this pain with courage, because acknowledging this purposelessness is the first step toward building an authentic and meaningful purpose. The problem is that we confuse living with existing. Existing means following a programmed routine every day, eating, sleeping, working, and nothing more. But living means to experience, to grow, and to give. Most of us spend our entire lives accumulating things that eventually become a burden on our shoulders. Think about this. If you were to die right now, would anyone remember you for the things you had or for the feeling you gave them? This simple question is the dividing line between a full life and an empty-handed departure. The shocking truth is that the fear of leaving empty-handed is not just financial stress, but the fear of an irreversible spiritual loss. You drew a bucket of water from the ocean. Do you want to return it empty? No. Let's confess right now. Often we prefer to lie down in the comfort of a familiar lie rather than risk the hard discovery of truth. The main reason for your lack of purpose is the constant suppression of that small inner voice that says, "This path is not yours." We silence this voice because the fear of change is more painful than enduring the familiar monotony. But listen, the suffering you feel is a gift. This dissatisfaction is the strongest fuel for change. You are not meant to become a saint overnight. You are meant to realize overnight that the world has no obligation to make you happy. Happiness is not a choice. It's a result, the outcome of moving on a path that awakens your soul, not just fills your wallet. To begin this awakening, you must understand how little the world matters, not in the sense of abandoning it, but in seeing its value on the scale of eternity. The world is a market, a place to gather provisions and goods for a longer journey. If you spend all your time gazing at the window displays of this market, you will leave empty-handed when the doors close. This is not a warning, it's a fact. In contrast, provisions means every small action done with love, awareness, and pure intention.
Provisions can be a timely smile, a kind word, or conscious silence. The world is just a temporary playground with very simple rules. As you sow, so shall you reap. But the problem is, we've sown the wrong seeds and are now looking for the right harvest. So let's start seeing clearly. This game is over. The goal of this chapter was to force you to confess, yes, I am in pain, and I accept this pain. Now that you've felt the pain, you can no longer sleep. In the next chapter, we will address one of the greatest obstacles to this awakening, your inner critic. He's the one who constantly tells you you're unworthy, it's too late, you always mess up. We must silence this old lying voice. Who do you really think he is? He's just a tape recorder that has been running in your mind since childhood. Do you want to be a slave to a tape recorder for the rest of your life?
Chapter 2. How do I get rid of the inner critic's voice? You've spent your entire life with someone whispering in your ear, "You're not enough. You're ugly. It's too late. You should be ashamed." This isn't the inner critic. It's the voice of your accumulated fears dressed up as a moral teacher. This voice is what prevents you from taking a deep breath and arriving in the present moment. Have you ever considered how much energy this angry voice, which constantly condemns you, steals from your provision-gathering efforts? It is your biggest obstacle to an authentic and fruitful life. Because when you are constantly criticizing yourself, there is no room left for acceptance, forgiveness, and moving forward. This voice is a prison where the jailer is you. It's time to see who this inner critic truly is, so his power over you can vanish and you can escape this prison. This critic is a silent killer, a killer of golden opportunities and moments of peace. We grew up with this voice and think it's our waking conscience, when in reality, it's just a nervous habit modeled after the words of our parents, society, and our failures. The truth is, he is not you. He is outdated software that hasn't been updated and keeps dragging you back into the past. Right now, close your eyes for a moment and think about the first time you heard this voice. You probably heard it from an adult, a teacher, or someone you loved. You believed that word, and now you spend your entire life trying to prove that lie to yourself and others. How long will you listen to someone who doesn't even exist externally, but only repeats inside your head? Let's start a new game, conscious replacement. Every time that familiar critical voice starts talking, pause and say, "That is not my voice." To wake up, you need to be kind to yourself, not constantly whipped. Kindness is not weakness. It is the strongest power for healing inner wounds. When you take a step to forgive yourself, you free up a large part of your energy that was previously spent fighting yourself. This energy is your main capital for building your spiritual provisions. You cannot simultaneously despise yourself and expect a miracle. Our suffering began when we believed we weren't enough. But if we silence this voice, how will we know what the right thing to do is? This is a common fear. We think if we don't criticize ourselves, we'll become irresponsible. This is where you need to replace the critic with the mentor. The critic knocks you down, the mentor shows you the solution. Instead of saying, "You failed," the mentor says, "This happened. Now, what do we learn from it, and how do we get back up?" Your inner mentor is your authentic wisdom that only reveals itself in silence and self-kindness. If you're constantly at war with yourself, this wise guiding voice will never be heard. Let your mentor guide you toward awakening. The conclusion of this chapter is clear. You must reclaim the power to rewrite your life story. As long as the inner critic is the commander, you are a victim. But when you break his silence, you become a creator. True freedom is freedom from this lying voice. Now that we know who the internal enemy is and how to deal with him,
In the next chapter, we will examine why, despite all our external efforts, we still feel a profound lack. We want to see why having more never led to being more. Are you also feeling that all your efforts are pouring into a leaky bucket?
Chapter 3. Why do I still feel something is missing despite all my efforts? This is one of the hardest confessions of our lives. I followed all the rules of the game, but at the end, I'm a loser. You ran, you fought, you suffered, yet when you lay your head on the pillow at night, a sneaky sense of dissatisfaction visits you. The reason is simple and summarized in one word: accumulation, takathur. We thought the key to contentment was in gathering money, degrees, likes, relationships. Society sold us the great lie that if you have more, you are worth more. And we swallowed this deception whole, and now we are empty inside. The problem is that we measure our own greatness by the size of the things we possess. This feeling of lack is exactly where you need to look for the truth. Our suffering began when we substituted accumulation, takathur, for abundance, kausar. Accumulation means increasing perishable things that can be taken from you with a market fluctuation or a moment of death. Abundance means increasing what is eternal, what fits into your provision bag and cannot be stolen or destroyed. You sought contentment, but you sought it where it wasn't sold. Contentment lies in the quality of the moment, not the quantity of possessions. We became so engrossed in the game of more that we forgot what we were striving for. And now, exhausted, we ask ourselves, so what? This so what is the turning point, the moment the mind wakes up and says, all this running was just for a mirage? You must break this false equation in your mind right now. Your worth equals your possessions. This is a psychological disaster that has turned us into production and consumption machines. To escape this trap, you need to take a big step: awareness of sufficiency. This is not just a positive affirmation, it's a radical confession. It means at the height of not achieving, at the height of lack, you can pause for a moment and say, I am enough right now. With all my shortcomings, I am a complete and valuable phenomenon. This is the awakening itself, when you no longer seek external validation in material things for self-confirmation. This is the point where the world can no longer drag you along with the rope of lack and greed. So what is the solution? You must change your life's measuring stick. Instead of gauging your success by what others see of you, measure it by how you feel inside. Did you take one more conscious step today? Did you lie less? Were you kinder to someone? These are your eternal currencies. Think about the moment of death. The only question that matters is, was the life I lived truly mine? If your answer is no, you've left empty-handed, even with $100 million. If your answer is yes, you are a winner even with empty pockets. Because provisions are not material things. They are a spiritual essence that remains from your actions. Your sense of lack is a gift. It warns you that you are going the wrong way. Now that we understand this lack comes from accumulation worship, we must prepare to empty this bag of worthless things. And the first step to becoming lighter is to break the chains of the past. As long as old grudges and regrets weigh down your present, you cannot gather provisions for tomorrow. In the next chapter, we address one of the heaviest burdens on the human soul: forgiveness. Can you truly untie those old knots and make peace with yourself? Forgiving the person who wronged you is, in truth, forgiving yourself. Chapter 4. Can I truly forgive my past and let go? How much of your life have you spent carrying the heavy stones of resentment and regret? These stones are what weigh down your provisions and slow your awakening.
We think we hold grudges to punish the other person, but the truth is the main prisoner is ourselves. We have chained ourselves with anger to a painful past that is over. And this is one of the most common shared human pains. You cannot avoid leaving empty-handed when your hands are full of the stones of anger and resentment. The first step to lightening this load is to put these stones down. And this is not just a pretty slogan, it's a physical and spiritual necessity for moving forward. Let's be honest, you deserve peace. But peace comes when you realize that holding a grudge is a choice. You can let it go right now. Forgiveness does not mean approving the other person's bad action. It means freeing yourself from that incident. When you forgive, you are telling yourself, that event no longer has the power to control my today and tomorrow. This act is the hardest but strongest step toward awakening. Because most of our suffering comes from blaming others for our current misfortunes, while by holding on to that pain, we are constantly repeating that incident in our present. You must accept that your power today is much more important than the pain of your yesterday. Perhaps you ask, how can I forgive myself? I've made big mistakes. This is the hardest kind of forgiveness. We punish ourselves for the unconscious decisions of the past. But understand this, in that moment, with the level of awareness and experience you had, you made the best possible decision. If you see that decision was wrong now, it is only because you have grown. So instead of self-blame, thank your past for leading you to this point of awakening. If you hadn't made mistakes, you would never have learned these lessons, and you would never have understood this book with this depth. Letting go means, I am not responsible for carrying the mistakes of my past. My only responsibility is to live the present moment consciously. So from this moment on, start one practice, cutting the energy cord. Whenever a painful memory or an old grudge comes up, say, I cut that cord. My energy belongs to today. This is a conscious and continuous practice that pulls you out of the past's orbit. By forgiving, you create a large empty space within yourself, a void that can now be filled with pure provisions. You cannot simultaneously hold resentment in your heart and send love and peace into the world. They do not fit in the same house. When you forgive, you become lighter and realize that avoiding leaving empty-handed first requires lightness of the soul. Now that you've put down the heaviest burden of the past and your soul is free, it's time to return to the inside. In the chaotic outside world, we need an anchor, a refuge that no one and nothing can take from us. In the next chapter, we will find this anchor. We want to see how to find a meaningful silence amidst all the noise and chaos. Do you know that the most powerful place in the world is right now, inside you?
The outside world is a loud and crowded market. That is a fact. Bad news, high expectations, endless competition. And you've spent your whole life getting lost in this crowd and putting on a new mask every day to survive this harsh game. But the truth is, peace is not an external shelter. It is an internal point that no one can take from you. You are looking for an anchor in the sea when you are the anchor. This is the beginning of the discovery of the wisdom of silence, where you realize the most powerful answers are not found in the loudest noises, but in the deepest silence. We run from silence because in silence we confront our true selves with all the fears, shortcomings, and confessions we've hidden throughout the day. That's why our phones are always in hand, the TV is always on, and we are always looking for something new to watch and hear. We are afraid of being with ourselves. But the way to find the anchor is exactly this, the courage to sit alone with yourself.
This is the hardest but most powerful exercise for separating the voice of truth from the voice of illusion. Right now, dedicate just 10 minutes a day to solitude. Not for thinking, not for cliché meditation, just for feeling. This anchor is your conscious presence. This conscious presence is the strongest provision you can gather. Because when you are consciously present in the moment, the past no longer imprisons you, nor does the future worry you. You are living in a point of power. This is what sages everywhere have pointed to, the power of now. But we ignored it and lived our whole lives in a time machine, either regretting yesterday or worrying about tomorrow. This present moment is your only true capital. Would you abandon your most valuable capital to search for worthless things? The practical solution for finding this anchor is simple yet profound: cutting off the sources of toxic thoughts. You must consciously choose what you let into your mind and heart. If you are constantly watching competition, hatred, and fear, your inner self will never be calm. Instead, focus your attention on small but profound things: your breath, the taste of the coffee you are drinking, a child's smile. These small exercises bring you closer to the philosophy of simplicity and make you realize that life's greatest miracles are hidden in these seemingly ordinary details. This simplicity is an indestructible refuge. Now that you have found your inner anchor and learned to seek refuge in silence instead of running from it, it's time to turn this peace into action. In previous chapters, we understood that the world doesn't matter much for us to leave empty-handed. But this world is the only place we can gather provisions, so we must learn how to use our time correctly. In the next chapter, we want to see if we are truly living or just passing the time. If I asked you right now, how many actual days did you live this month, what would your answer be?
Chapter 6. Am I just passing time or truly living every day? You always say you don't have time. Time for family, for reading books, for sleep, and most importantly, for yourself. But the truth is, we all have the same amount of time. Only our priorities are fake. We spend our time on things that ultimately don't add an ounce to our spiritual provisions. We pass the days to reach a hypothetical point in the future, oblivious to the fact that that point never comes. And in this passing, life itself slips away. This is the greatest deception of time. You think you have plenty of time, while right now, time is running out, and every breath brings you closer to the final moment. Gathering provisions is not about working hard, but about conscious action.
Chapter 7. How do I turn toxic relationships into a driving force? All of us have dealt with people in our lives who absorbed our energy like a sponge and left us empty and exhausted. This is the shared human pain. The fear of being alone keeps us in the wrong relationships. But if you want to avoid leaving empty-handed, you must accept this truth. You cannot light another's lamp while your own candle is burning out. Toxic relationships are the biggest thieves of your provisions. They steal your time, energy, and inner peace, trapping you in a cycle of blame and dependency. To wake up, you must find the courage to be alone, because only in solitude does your complete self emerge. The first step to turning a toxic relationship into a driving force is 100% responsibility. You must accept that you are also responsible for staying in that relationship. Out of fear, loneliness, or dependency, you allowed that toxin to enter your life. This confession is painful, but awakening.
When you accept responsibility, you are no longer a victim. You are the controller of your own life. The driving force here is this. Instead of blaming others, you use this energy to build iron boundaries. Boundaries are the strongest tools of an awakened person. A boundary means, I love you, but not more than I love myself. We must eliminate our fear of saying no. Saying no to something that harms you is a deeply spiritual act. You are protecting your inner temple. When you set boundaries, others might initially get angry or leave you. And this is where you must make the strongest decision. Solitude is better than a false crowd. Solitude is your golden opportunity to recharge your spiritual provisions. All the great and awakened individuals in history experienced deep moments of awakening in solitude. Instead of running from loneliness, welcome it with open arms. It is your friend and mentor. Now, if you cannot cut off the relationship, you must spiritualize it. That is, turn that relationship into a training ground for yourself. Every time the other person acts toxically, you act consciously instead of reacting. They give anger, you return peace. They give despair, you send hope. This is the hardest practice, but it turns you into an awakened person who is no longer controlled by the emotions and actions of others. You are using this relationship to strengthen your provisions of patience and unconditional love. They are no longer toxic, they are teaching you. This is a powerful driving force. The conclusion of this chapter is clear. To fill your provisions, you must identify and disarm the energy thieves. We learned that boundaries are an act of self-love, and solitude is the path to awakening. Now that you have cleansed your emotional and spiritual space, we must address the most important question. With all these awakenings, what is the most important thing we must do before it's too late? What is worth all this fighting and staying awake? Have you ever thought about your legacy?
We spent our whole lives focused on tomorrow, but now we understand that tomorrow is not a guaranteed promise. So, what is our most important task? Not a big project, not a trip around the world, but building a spiritual legacy. This legacy is neither money nor houses. It is the impact your presence has left on this world. This is your final provision. You must not die and leave nothing behind, not for fame, but for the perfection of your own soul. An awakened person is someone who understands that life is not just about taking, but about giving. This giving is the most important thing that must be done before it's too late. You must accept another harsh truth. You will eventually be forgotten. Your name will fade from gravestones, and future generations will not know you. So if you live for fame or visibility, you have left empty-handed. But if you live for a deep and invisible impact, your provisions will always be with you. This invisible impact is your spiritual legacy. Your legacy is not in words and claims, but in the vibration of love you send out into the world. You must free yourself from the constant need for validation and focus only on purity of intention. Did you do your work with love? That is enough. So, how do we build this legacy? Through hidden righteous deeds. The greatest provisions are those that no one knows about except you and God. Why? Because in these deeds, your false self plays no role, and this is the purest form of action. When you help someone without expecting thanks, when you silently wish well for someone, you are planting an eternal seed. This is the legacy no one can take from you.
These actions are like the cash of the world to come. You should keep a daily list of hidden deeds, things you do only for your own heart and the cosmos. Recall a famous story here, the story of Noah's Ark. Noah built the ark for years and people mocked him. Building this ark was his conscious work in the insignificant world. He worked not for people's approval, but for ultimate salvation. Your legacy is your ark of salvation that you must build in this chaotic world. It doesn't matter what others say or think. What matters is whether your ark is strong enough to carry you through the final storm. This ark is your spiritual provisions. Your most important task is building this ark every day without stopping. Now that we understand what our legacy is and how important it is to hide it from others, we come to a deep contradiction. If this world is so unimportant, and if we must gather provisions for the next world, why should we bother to continue? Why suffer and move forward? Is our whole life not a big, meaningless joke? In the next chapter, we address this crisis of meaning and want to see why the meaninglessness of the world is our greatest motivation for a meaningful life.
Chapter 9. If everything is meaningless, why should I go on? This is one of the hardest and most honest questions a human can ask themselves. If we're going to die, if everything is temporary, and if the world, as we say, is so unimportant, why should we wake up in the morning? This crisis of meaning is the root of all modern depression. We tried to give our lives meaning through money, fame, or material things, but we failed. And in this failure, we reached a terrifying truth. The world itself is inherently meaningless. But wait, this is where the miracle begins. The meaninglessness of the world is your greatest opportunity to create personal meaning. Let's accept this fact once and for all. The world is a blank canvas. It has no color or meaning on its own. We wasted our whole lives trying to extract meaning from this blank canvas. But we are not creators. We are mirrors. Meaning is found not in the world, but in your perspective of the world. The world is meaningless, but that does not mean your life is meaningless. Quite the opposite. Because the world is meaningless, you have the chance to paint the most important and authentic meaning possible onto it. If the world already had meaning, you would be a predetermined actor. But now, you are the creator. This burden is heavy, but it is your absolute power. To go on, you need an internal reason, not an external promise. This reason is something you genuinely care about and are willing to pay the price for. This is your abundance, Kausar. Something you cannot explain, but without which you cannot live. It could be love for someone, a great idea to help the world, or even the commitment to stay awake in every moment. Your reason for continuing is your reason for not leaving empty-handed. You want to prove that you can build a conscious and meaningful life, even in a meaningless world. This is heroism itself. So, we don't take the world seriously, but we take our effort seriously. The world is a school, and you are the student. The school is not important, but the grade you get is important. Your grade is your provisions. Therefore, we suffer and strive, not for the world itself, but for the spiritual perfection we gain along the way. This is not a race between you and the world. It is a race between you and your untapped potential. Your continuing is an act of defiance against meaninglessness, a declaration that says, I create the meaning of my own life. With this internal awakening, you no longer worry about whether the world validates you. You only worry about whether you have gathered enough provisions to leave with dignity. Now that we have stripped away all the layers of fear, resentment, and purposelessness, and understood why we must continue, it is time to reach the final conclusion.
In the last chapter, we will address the most important question and draw a final roadmap. How can I be sure that in the final moment, I take a deep breath and say, "My hands are full"?
Chapter 10. How can I be sure I won't leave empty-handed? We have reached the finish line of this journey, the moment you have been worried about from the start. How can we be sure that our provision bag is full in the final moment? The answer is not a magical formula, but a permanent paradigm shift. You will not leave empty-handed if and only if, starting today, you see every day as your last chance to give and to stay awake. Certainty is an inner feeling built from the sum of all your conscious actions. This feeling does not come overnight. It is the result of years of living by the law of provision making. This law is simple. Don't take the world seriously, but take staying awake in it seriously. To guarantee that your hands are full, you must start the final exercise, experiencing the moment of death in awareness. Close your eyes right now and visualize the last moment of your life, not with fear, but with awareness. Whose face comes to your mind? What words are left unsaid? What actions did you fail to take that you deeply wished you had? This daily practice is the strongest tool for setting your true priorities. This simulation removes all the superfluous from your life and directs you straight toward the actions that are eternal. Nothing forces you to live like death does. There are two final keys to filling your provision bag: love without expectation and truth without fear. All our provisions ultimately come down to these two things. Love without expectation means you give without asking, "What's in it for me?" This is the purest form of energy that fills the universe. And truth without fear means never, even in the hardest circumstances, deceive yourself and be honest with the truth of your life. This honesty is your inner light that illumines the path in the final darkness. These are the simplest, yet the hardest things in life. Now, let's think about that prayer again. "Oh God, help me not to leave this world empty-handed." This prayer is not just a wish, it's a conscious commitment. God helps you not through miracles, but through the inner power He has placed within you. He gave you eyes to see the truth and a heart to feel love. Your provisions are the sum of all the moments you consciously used these gifts. Ultimately, your bag will be full of good feelings and pure deeds, not bridges and titles. This is the only ultimate truth. Our journey is over. We understood that the world is just a farm, and you are the farmer. Your worth is measured by the seeds you planted and the harvest you collected for the next journey. This book was only a beginning, a deep jolt to wake you up. Stay awake, because just one moment of unconsciousness is enough to fall back asleep. In the next section, we summarize this entire journey and prepare you for a new, decisive beginning. You can no longer claim ignorance of the truth. Now it is time for action.
Conclusion. You are no longer the person from Chapter 1. You accepted your pain, silenced your inner critic, recognized the deception of accumulation, forgave your grudges, found your anchor, turned your time into life, built a driving force from toxic relationships to find your legacy, and discovered the meaning of life in the meaninglessness of the world. You are now an awakened human, someone who knows the final goal is not arriving, but staying awake on the journey. The world was never serious, but your spiritual provisions for the next journey are the most serious work of your life. As you said, You will not leave empty-handed. Answers to 20 frequently asked questions. Subtle calming techniques. This section, at the end of the book, answers common questions, enhancing the feeling of peace in the reader. How do I get rid of negative thoughts? Inner answer. Negative thoughts are simply the old critic's voice. By practicing awareness of the breath, just observe them and let them pass instead of fighting them. You are not the thought. Why am I always worried about the future? Inner answer. Worry means you don't believe in the power of now. All the power to gather provisions is in this second. Don't worry about what hasn't arrived yet. How can I forgive others? Inner answer. Forgiveness is releasing the responsibility of punishment. When you forgive, you are telling yourself, I am more important than that pain. How do I gain self-confidence? Inner answer. Confidence does not come from external validation. It comes from the full acceptance of yourself with all your dark spots. You are complete with all these imperfections. How do I find my true life purpose? Inner answer. Purpose is not a big hidden thing. Purpose is in every one of your conscious and hidden actions. Instead of finding, start creating purpose. How do I cope with the fear of failure? Inner answer. Failure is just a big lesson for your provisions. Thank failure, because it pushed you toward awakening. Why can't I be happy in a relationship? Inner answer. Because you expect the external relationship to fill your internal void. A strong relationship with yourself is the only way to happiness. How do I start meditating? Inner answer. Don't make meditation hard. Just sit in silence for 3 minutes and say, I just am. How do I eliminate guilt? Inner answer. Guilt is an energy thief. Forgive yourself and spend your energy on building a conscious future. Why am I rich but still feel lack? Inner answer. Because your provision is not cash. You sought abundance in the world of accumulation. Focus on lasting actions. How can I have more focus and peace? Inner answer. By reducing inputs and saying no to external noise. The simpler you live, the calmer you become. Am I good enough? Inner answer. You are completely enough. Your worth is inherent and needs no external proof. How do I overcome procrastination? Inner answer. By using the right now rule. Procrastination is the thief of your provisions. Take one small step immediately. How do I know if I'm on the right path? Inner answer. If you are on the right path, you have more inner peace and less worry about others' approval. Your heart is your compass. Do I have to give everything to wake up? Inner answer. No. You only have to release your attachment to the outcomes. Don't take the world seriously, but act consciously within it. How do I get rid of envy? Inner answer. Envy means you don't believe in your own reward and provisions. Focus on your own farm. How can I be impactful? Inner answer. The most impactful actions are hidden actions. Your impact comes from the purity of your intention. How do I set boundaries with toxic people? Inner answer. By saying no, firmly and without guilt. This no is a yes to your provisions. How do I stop thinking about the past? Inner answer. The past is only a memory. Forgive it and bring your energy to the now with awareness of the breath. How do I guarantee I won't leave empty-handed? Inner answer. With daily conscious action aligned with love, awareness, and hidden action, your provision is guaranteed.